I know that Deputy Commissioner Miller had to leave, and I was hoping to have the opportunity to commend and thank him and his folks for was truly remarkable and amazing response to the terrorist events in New York and New Jersey this past weekend, and the incredible speed at which they were able to identify and apprehend the suspect, Mr. Rahami. I think that probably saved the lives of countless Americans, and of course we're all grateful that Officer Padilla and Investigator Hammer are both expected to make a full recovery from their injuries sustained during their heroic actions. But these events really only underscore how every day members of our law enforcement community, your teams, say goodbye to their loved ones and then go out and put their lives on the line to protect their neighbors. And now, unfortunately, you all are being asked to do not just the traditional jobs that we've always asked law enforcement to do. You now have to answer the call when terrorists attack. And in that respect, you truly are the first line of defense in ensuring that our streets don't become battlefields. And it seems to me that if we're asking you all to go to battle, then the very least that we can do is make sure that you get the type of equipment that you need to protect yourselves and to protect all of us. Now, I will tell you, it's not very often that I get a chance to talk about a federal program that serves a noble purpose like that and does so effectively, efficiently, and at essentially no cost to taxpayers. Those types of federal programs are about as rare as a $3 bill. But the 1033 surplus program is exactly that kind of program, and I think you all know that. It's a program that allows the Department of Defense to transfer certain surplus defense equipment, which has already been paid for and in many cases already been used to protect our troops, and to repurpose that for our state and local law enforcement to use in counterterrorism activities and counter-drug activities and in emergency situations that arise in our communities all the time. That was the case, anyway, until unilateral executive actions by President Obama, which cut access to that type of critical equipment that agencies like yours depend on. In fact, many of you have had, I assume, to send back some of the equipment that you'd already received from the program. Equipment like tracked armored vehicles, the kind that law enforcement officers in my district say have saved lives in crisis situations, and which double as rescue vehicles in some circumstances. And because of the President's action here, some of the SWAT teams that have had the benefit of life-saving body armor and ballistic helmets won't have that benefit anymore because they can't afford that equipment without this program. So I think the President's actions here are frankly inexcusable. And I think he has put the safety of your officers and his politics ahead of the public safety. So in response to all that, earlier this year I introduced the PLUS Act, the Protecting Lives Using Surplus Equipment Act of 2016, which would reverse the President's executive order and restore that program to law enforcement agencies like all of yours. Sheriff Bouchard, I want to start with you because I noticed you mentioned it in your opening statement. I really want to get your perspective on the administration's unilateral decision to strip this type of equipment from agencies like yours. And in answering that, I'm interested in the policy, of course, but I'm less interested in hypothetical. I want to know how this is really affecting officers like the ones that you manage out in the real world.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your leadership on this. We have, I think, pretty much across the board found 1033 extremely helpful in assisting law enforcement in challenging days and times, and I think we saw real-time evidence of that in San Bernardino, the use of armored vehicles and tactical equipment to save lives. In a real-life example, the day that was playing out, we received an order from Washington to return our tracked vehicle that day, and it was loaded on a flatbed, and the intent is to blow it up. And the tracked vehicles around the country are used not just for dangerous armored situations, but there are also diverse terrain across this country, sand and snow. Northern Michigan can get 5 feet of snow, and a tracked vehicle is the only way to get to certain situations. I know San Bernardino found themselves with a running fugitive hunt who had killed a number of people, and they had to actually borrow, I think, Park's cats to be able to drive through some of the deep snow. In my real-life example is we had a running gun battle that lasted almost 12 hours with an individual who had killed a police officer and barricaded himself in a house. Was firing a fully automatic weapon, not just out the windows, but through the walls and striking all the neighbors' homes. We used armored vehicles to evacuate the neighbors and to obviously protect our deployed deputies around the scene as we continued that running gun battle all night long. Towards the end of that gun battle, we wanted to insert into the second story, and the only way we could do that was with an armored vehicle that actually had a ramp to a second story. That armored tracked vehicle was recalled by the federal government. Our region no longer has the ability to have a ramp to a second story and an armored capability. So that literally was saving lives that night and was taken and is intended to be destroyed. So that's the kind of situation we're facing. And I just go a step further. I think most of the real problems are now coming from the rulemakers. I'm the point person on this for Major County Sheriffs of America, and I've been in more meetings than I can count. And in one of the meetings, there were 37 people in the room. 2 of us were full-time law enforcement. So the people making rules, I actually was asked the question in one of these meetings, what caliber is 223? The people making the decisions don't know the equipment or the tactics used with this equipment, and they get to decide how and when and where we use that. I think that's a problem. And they're writing rules that are rather extensive. They keep changing them. They've changed them a number of times. They haven't been formalized, but they're going to be backdated to October of last year, and we don't know what those rules are yet. At one point it was we had to train our whole agency on a specific set of training, department-wide. Not the people that used it or were authorized to call it out, but the whole agency. And so much of this is driven by perception. It's incredibly frustrating. You know, they talk about militarized. Tracked vehicles were removed because they looked too militarized, but you can still get armored vehicles with wheels. Well, that doesn't go to the tactics necessary or the terrain. I had to turn in 12 bayonets because they thought we were fixing bayonets, I guess, and charging homes. They were 12 chrome bayonets used by the Honor Guard at funerals. So we had to go out and buy the bayonets for the Honor Guard that the federal government recalled. So much of this is driven by perception, not by the reality of use or by who's making those decisions, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Thank you, Sheriff. Based on the answer that you just gave me, would you agree with me that the President's decision to eliminate this program is jeopardizing the safety and well-being of your officers? I
certainly would agree with that statement. In fact, I said that after San Bernardino, the sheriff, a friend of mine, said they came prepared and America's less prepared as we sent back our armored vehicles that same day.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm out of time. Chief, I saw you nodding your head in response to that, so I want to give you a chance to comment on this if you...
I'll be very brief, but whether it's a 1033 program or asset forfeiture, we need to deal with individual departments if they abuse or misuse the equipment or the assets, and not paint the entire profession and hold the entire profession accountable with a broad brush. You remember the MRAPs, everybody hates them. Oh, they evoke images of Iraq. And the Chairman McCall and I had a press conference in Austin where we didn't get one for Austin because my SWAT team, that's too big for our city configuration. But I said, when you have floods and we're a state prone to flooding, we need those MRAPs to rescue people. And not a month passed when we had some major flooding in our central Texas. And guess what the PD just south of me used? An MRAP to rescue kids that were stuck inside an elementary school that had basically flooded all around it. And so it's not the equipment, it's the way it needs to be used. And so absolutely the 1033 and asset forfeiture hold the departments accountable that it misused the equipment, and let's not paint the entire profession with a broad brush.
Thank you,